Hey there, and welcome. Today we're going to look at your life through a completely different lens, the lens of physics. And trust me, this is not the stuff you remember from high school. We're about to see how the fundamental laws of the universe might just explain our own choices, our habits, and even our relationships in some really mind-blowing ways.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're staring at some equation on a chalkboard, thinking, this is all so abstract. What does this have to do with my job, my family, or the things I'm actually struggling with? But what if it's not true? What if those very lessons hold a secret code to understanding ourselves a little better?
Well, this brings us to Ida Horozlu. She's a physicist who, after a whole career in banking, had a realization. She was always teaching, always explaining really complex systems to her clients. And that's when it clicked. She connected the dots between her two passions and discovered something pretty remarkable. The laws of physics are actually these powerful metaphors for the challenges we face, every single day. So here's our game plan. We're going to dive into 3 of her big ideas. First up, we'll talk about the force of resistance that keeps you feeling stuck. Then, we'll figure out if your personality is more of a solid, a liquid, or a gas. And finally, we'll uncover the really surprising physics of human connection. Let's get started with that force that keeps us stuck. Okay, our first concept is a force we have all felt. It's that thing that keeps us stuck in place, even when we really, really want to move forward. And in physics, it has a name: friction. So the old textbook definition is pretty simple, right? Friction is just the force that makes it hard to, say, slide a heavy box across the floor. But Horozlu realized that we experience this exact same force in our own lives, just in a totally different way.
Horozlu tells this great story about a friend who spent a whole dinner just complaining. You know that sound, that constant, grinding, creaky sound of frustration without any action? That, she says, is personal friction. It's that internal force that resists your own motion when you're trying to change or grow or even just get started on something new.
So how do we actually deal with this friction? Well, it could be that you're just carrying too much weight, too many responsibilities. The solution? Figure out what you can put down. Or it could be unseen obstacles, things in your way that you haven't even identified. The first step there is to just name them. Or maybe it's a lack of what Horozlu calls polish, that motivation and encouragement from others, or even yourself, that makes the journey a little smoother.
Okay, now let's jump back to high school science for a minute. Solids, liquids, and gases. It turns out these states of matter are a fantastic way to understand our own mindsets and how we react to the world, especially when we're dealing with that friction we just talked about.
Think about it. We can exist in any of these 3 states. A solid person is rigid, defined by their fixed beliefs. They're like a rock. It's really hard for new ideas to get in. Then you've got the liquid person. They're adaptable. They take the shape of whatever container they're in, flowing into new jobs or social circles pretty easily. And finally, the gas person. They're totally unbound, just surrendering to the moment and letting go of control. Think of someone scuba diving for the first time, just trusting the process.
So the big question is, how do we shift from being a rigid solid to a more adaptable liquid? Well, it's the exact same way ice melts into water. You have to apply energy. In life, that energy can be positive, like love or understanding that slowly wears down our hard edges. Or it can be really intense, like a crisis that acts like a fire, forcing us to melt and completely reform.
All right, our final concept is a little more advanced, I'll admit, but it is so cool and it perfectly explains the magic that happens when the right people connect. It's a real phenomenon from quantum physics, and it's called the Auger Effect.
Now, don't get hung up on the definition. Put simply, it's a process where hitting an atom with energy doesn't just knock out one little particle. Nope, instead it creates this chain reaction that results in an even bigger release of energy. Here's how it actually works. Okay, let's walk through this. First, some external energy hits an atom. This knocks an electron out of a deep inner orbit. But here, this is the magic part. As that first electron is leaving, it literally grabs a second electron from an outer orbit and pulls it along. They fly off together, and their combined energy is way higher than the initial impact. That's the key. So how does this relate to us? This is where it gets really powerful. Horozlu says we're just like those electrons, all moving in our own social and professional orbits. Then, some external energy, a new idea, a chance meeting, a collaboration, hits one of us. That person gets energized, and in the process, they pull someone from a totally different orbit along for the ride. And together they create something new with a much higher combined energy. That, my friends, is synergy. The big takeaway here is that true collaboration isn't just 1 + 1 = 2. It's not additive, it's exponential. It's 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 or maybe even 10. This is literally the physics behind why teamwork and community are so incredibly powerful. They create more energy than the sum of their parts.
So, we've looked at friction, the states of matter, and this wild Auger effect. But these aren't just cool metaphors to think about. They're actual practical tools you can start using to understand your own life.
So here's your new toolkit. Feeling stuck? Go ahead and analyze the sources of your personal friction. Wondering why you're so resistant to change? Identify your state of matter. Are you being a solid when the situation really calls for a liquid? And if you want to create something amazing, look for your Auger effect. Seek out those people and ideas that will generate that powerful synergistic energy.
And this might be the most powerful idea of all. We don't have to invent these rules. They're already there, running in the background in every atom and every galaxy. We are physical beings, living in a physical universe, and we are subject to its laws. The key isn't to fight them, but to finally see them and learn how to work with them.
So I'll leave you with this. Take a second to think about a challenge you're facing right now. Is it friction? Are you in the wrong state of being? Are you maybe just waiting for the right kind of energy to trigger your own Auger effect? Once you start looking through this lens, I promise, you'll start to see the physics of you everywhere.